Quite often people reach out to me through my YouTube channel and they ask me whether I can help them with getting a job in tech. And quite soon I started to realize that many of you are making the same mistakes that are preventing you from getting your dream job. So my name is Thomas, and 8 years ago I started working for a big IT consulting firm, and a few years later I started my own business and I started freelancing for all kind of different clients in all kind of different industries. So I actually know what I'm talking about, and I also know how difficult it can be to get your first job in tech without any prior working experience. But bear with me, because there is a way. So what you see here on the screen in front of us is what I would call the world of work. So in the right top of my screen, you see companies that are actually creating a product or a service. Then on the right side below, you see government agencies. So those two types of organizations are companies that actually need people to create a product or a service. Now on the left side of my screen, you see what we call consulting companies. I will start with the big four: EY, KPMG, Deloitte, PwC. And then below the big four, we see IT consulting companies. So those are companies that are focused on IT consulting. Some companies do more also strategy consulting and other types of consulting, but their major focus is consulting in tech. And then you see at the left bottom, you see local boutique consulting firms. And those are basically consulting companies that focus on one specific industry, maybe pharmacy or banking, or they focus on one specific technology, maybe robotic process automation or building Python applications with Django. So this is the world of work. And of course, this is way oversimplified. But let me try to make my point here. Most people, they start applying for a job and then they start at the right top or the right bottom. So at companies that actually create a product or a service. And I just want to give you an example. So there was a person, he reached out to me and he applied for a job at a hospital and he was rejected. And he had a bit of experience. He taught himself how to program in Python, which is really good, but he was rejected. So the point that I'm trying to make is, do you think there is any hospital in the world that's going to spend 2 years to first teach you how to use Python, and secondly, teach you how to use Python in an organizational context, which is also way different than using Python at home? So the companies on the right side of the screen, they don't have the time or the resources to teach juniors how to code, etc., etc. So what I see quite often, and of course there are exceptions there, is that the organizations on the right side of the screen try to hire people with mediocre or with senior experience. And that's because those people basically can start adding value right away. So the companies on the left side of the screen, if you don't know what consulting is, they will basically hire you. They will also give you an employment contract, and they will staff you. To the companies on the right side of the screen, they will pay your salary with the revenue, and they will also try to make a profit. And the companies on the left side of the screen are more eager to work with juniors, and that's because they have the resources and they have the people to train you and to teach you everything you have to know. Like, for example, if you work at one of these companies, they might have 50 people or maybe even 1,000 people that do Python, and they do it with Django, for example, right? So those people can take you under their wings and they can train you. And after a few weeks or maybe even a few months, you can start your first job at the client. So I'm not saying that there are no junior jobs at the right side of the screen, but I see them less often. And I know from experience that it's way easier to get into the consulting business. And if you've worked for a consulting company for 1 or 2 years, you have the experience, you have been trained, and you have worked at maybe 3 or 4 different projects, it's way easier to get a job in the industry at one of the companies on the right side, because then you have experience and you have worked at many different projects. So let's say that you want to get into consulting. So for which of the categories of companies should you then work? So let's start with the big four. So working at the big four, you won't learn the most about IT, but you will learn how to apply IT within an organizational context, and you will learn a lot from the industry where the client is working in. If you really want to become like an expert in a specific IT tool, then I would go for the category in the middle, the Accentures, the IBMs, the Capgeminis, because they are really specialized in IT, but you won't learn a lot about the industry. You will be just like hardcore IT, I will say it like that. And local boutique consulting firms, they are usually smaller companies. They are more like a family, and they will specialize in one industry or in one specific tool. So you will recognize them when you see them. And if you like working in a smaller team, then the local boutique consulting firm is really the type of company where you should apply. Now keep watching, because there is a second misconception that I also want to get out of the way. So maybe you already decided that you want to get into consulting, or maybe you want to still apply at one of the organizations at the right side of the screen. But let's take a look at the hiring process from the organizational side. So the last thing that a company wants, and that a person working for a company wants, is that they hire you and after 4 months they have to fire you because they have hired the wrong person. So they will try to lower the risk of hiring a candidate as much as possible, and they have a few tools that they can use in order to lower this risk. So first of all, they will try to hire candidates with a degree. They are also looking for candidates with experience, but of course, you need to have a first job in order to get some experience. And then they also hire candidates who are certified. So if you are applying for a role and there are certificates that you can get, maybe for example for Microsoft Power Automate or for Python, certificates can be really useful to show that you know what you're actually talking about and that you have done the effort to get these certificates. So if you can get any certificate for the job that you're applying for, I would definitely recommend it. And now let's take a look at the last line, use low code instead of coding. Now you can imagine that there is quite some risk in a person using actual code like Python or Java, for example, because let's just imagine that you don't document your project or you build something but the architecture isn't correct, etc., etc. So it's quite easy to blow up a project with traditional coding. On the left side of my screen, you see low code. So low code means that you don't use actual code, but you use, for example, drag and drop tools to build an application. And low code is not always easier than traditional programming. And the reason that companies really like low code is that the risk of building something that really doesn't work or doesn't make sense is way lower with low code. And with low code, they can also control the environment and what you are building way better. So I divided low code into 3 categories. And the first category, those are tools that you can use to build real applications like Mendix, OutSystems, and for example, Microsoft Power Apps. So you can use these tools to build applications, but you don't have to use traditional coding like Python and C#, for example. The second category are tools that you can use to build automations, so to actually automate business processes. So for example, UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and there was also Microsoft Power Automate. And the third category, those are tools that you can use to build dashboards. So you might be familiar already with Microsoft Power BI. There is also Tableau and there is also ClickSense, for example. And I will put all the names of all the tools that you see here in this picture in the description of this video, so you can also do your research about those tools. Now keep watching, because in the next section, I will reveal how I would get a job in tech. So if you want to get a job in tech in the next 4 weeks, the first step that you have to take is to perform research. So you're going to research the job market, you're going to search for vacancies, and then you're going to check which tool is being advertised. Are they using Python? Are they using Microsoft Power Automate, UiPath, Power BI, you name it. Just see if you can find patterns and if multiple companies are looking for someone who knows about the same tool. And then the second step, you're going to stop applying for all kinds of vacancies. It doesn't make sense. So you're going to focus on one tool only, which is a tool that you like and where there is a lot of demand for in your area. So if you see that many companies in your area are searching for a Power BI junior, and you like Power BI, then you're going to learn Power BI, you're going to get the certificate, which is the PL300. And as soon as you have that certificate, as soon as you know what it is and you've actually experienced the tool, then you're going to apply to those companies. Now, getting this certificate might take you some time and it can as well cost you some money. So if that is the case, just put the certification on your resume and you put next to it in progress to show that you are working on getting these certificates. But what I really want you to avoid is that you apply for one job, then you get feedback, then you start doubting yourself, and then you start to ask all kinds of questions. You just have to make the applications. So what we're going to do, you're going to apply for 4 jobs immediately. You're going to get to the interviews. If you are rejected, you're going to ask for feedback, and only after the first 4 interviews, you're going to take this feedback and you're going to use it to pivot. So if all these 4 companies say that they are not using for a Power BI person, but for a Power Automate person, for example, you're only going to apply that after the first 4 interviews, because otherwise we keep getting back and forth. Now remember that the person on the other side of the table is also just a person and they're happy to help you. So even if you got rejected, just ask them if they can give you any tips to perform better in the next interview. So before wrapping up this video with my final conclusion, I want to show you one more thing. And that's at companies like UiPath, for example, if you want to learn robotic process automation, a low-code tool that we have just seen in the previous screen. UiPath has a really big academy where you can learn everything about using their tool. And there are many more low-code tools that have an academy that you can access for free, even with your personal account. You can learn the tool and then you can apply for the job that you actually want. Once you go through the steps in this video, I hope that you notice that the steps that I'm showing you for getting a job are actually the same steps as for building a startup or marketing a new product. First of all, you start with market research to get an idea of what the market actually wants from you. And then you build either a product or a profile. So you build a profile from yourself that you think that the market is waiting for. And then you go to the market and you start applying for jobs. It's not more difficult than this. But don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And let me know in the comments if this video was helpful for you in getting your dream job.